to worry about anything with them.
Oh, that's true about him.
Leave them as a secret. So,
Oh, there's no turn on?
yeah.
Okay. I think they're.
Hello?
All right.
Awesome. Wow. All right. Welcome to our last panel of the day. I put down the thing that I wanted to read from. So I just wanted to quickly, before we start this panel, offer a few thank yous. This forum was a Herculean effort and it was a team effort. So the scoping for this forum started about a year ago when I reached out to Amy and Bryn, who I didn't know at all. And I said, hey, can I show up at your collaboratives and ask them like what they think the big issues in outdoor recreation are? And very graciously, they agreed. And so thank you to them. And thank you also to all the collaborative members who contributed their thoughts. The Worth Advisory Board, and then all the one-on-ones that I had with people to try to shape these panels and discussions. Thank you to everyone who has been on this stage for contributing just in such a thoughtful way, all your experience, and also being willing to share your challenges as well. Thank you to the steering committee, who is actually this panel, mostly, except for Representative Newsome, who reviewed early drafts of the agenda and early drafts and offered feedback on sort of the situation assessment that led to this. Oh my gosh, Joseph and Nick and the rest of the incredible venue, catering, and audiovisual staff who have just made this thing run. Everyone who submitted photos, you may have noted the slideshow. So those were all user submitted. What's a place you love to spend time outside in Wyoming? And I definitely found that I enjoyed looking up to that and yeah, remembering why we're all here. And then of course, all of you for coming. You're what made this. And then finally, the 4 people who this forum couldn't have happened without. So Amy Crawford for advising, connecting, and taking on tomorrow's workshop. Taylor Kruger, who I could trust with anything. Dan McCoy for supporting this forum on every level. And Anastasia Brady, who makes it all happen. So can we just give a round of applause to all those people? All right, so we have, as I feel like with every panel, an incredible lineup that I'm so honored is here to speak. And this is really about reflecting on the last 2 days. It's an opportunity for our panelists, but also for all of you in the audience to look inward and think about what we've learned and what we're coming away with, and then also turn outward and think about how do we bring these things outside of this room? Where do we take them? And what have we learned? Which I already said. So first, I'm going to ask the panelists to just react to the forum. What resonated? What was surprising? What are you excited about? What was something new? And we'll start with Representative Newsome, who's the chairperson of the House Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources Committee in the Wyoming State Legislature.
Hi, and thank you for that kind introduction. And gosh, what a great forum. I just can't, when I came, I didn't realize how far-reaching and what a wonderful lineup of topics and lineup of speakers. But what I enjoyed most was hearing from the students. So I had the opportunity to, during the breakout sessions, to listen to the students and their well thought out topics and their well presented topics. And I was so impressed with that. And how do we engage more of that activity and through the Worth Initiative and all those things? It was just a great opportunity to see where the youth, I say this kind of often, I'm old. And I've made some changes in Wyoming by my work in the legislature and my work on the tourism board and my work in tourism. And now it's time for the youth to take over and create the Wyoming that they want, create the place that they want to live. So before I cry, because this makes me very emotional. So I'm gonna pass it over to Bud.
Great. So next we'll hear, thank you. Next we'll hear from Bud Betts, the owner of Absaroka Ranch and Outfitters, and many other things.
So it's this is a great concept, and it's something that surely needs to move forward. This kind of a forum and this kind of a construct. Your agenda says takeaways and commitments and things like that. We've heard the word passion. I think the two biggest words we've heard today or in the last couple of days are passion and collaboration. So I'll explain a little what I think that means, both in a positive and negative way. First of all, what I do is I'm part of the dollar sign up there. Our businesses or what I do in terms of how we're involved and connected to outdoor recreation. We have a dude ranch. We have hunting camps, 2 hunting camps. We also own the fly shop in town. And I'm also on the Wyoming Board of Tourism. And I'm also heavily involved in the Wyoming Outfitter and Guide Association. I only say that in the sense that I am the dollar sign aspect of this whole, I'm part of the dollar of this whole equation. So when you mix that in with passion and collaboration, that's everybody is passionate about what's going on with their connection to Wyoming, to the outdoors. But there could be some downside on that passion aspect and a potential for conflict. We've heard that word over the last couple of days as well. So one of the takeaways I have is that if we continue forward with this construct, this process, is that we number one need to expand on it. I mean, we've got to bring as many and as diverse groups of people. We could use a little more, I think, maybe I'm wrong here, of the motorized aspect of outdoor recreation into this group, into this construct. And as we continue this process, this could perhaps be a structure or a forum or whatever for conflict resolution, because with this passion comes also conflict. And we've heard of some of the issues in some of the breakout sessions, et cetera, that have come with this. So that's what I'm coming away with this conference. And I think you've done a great job, Birch, and everybody else associated with you, and keep up the effort.
All right, next we'll hear from Mike Kusiek, the Executive Director of Wyoming Pathways.
Thanks, Birch, and thanks, everybody. Yesterday, Director Glenn asked us to stand up if we were in different interest groups or why we were here. And at the end, he said, if you're interested in outdoor rec, stand up. And everyone stood up. And then what that tells us is it's motorized to non-motorized, hunting, fishing, any way you recreate, we're all in this together. And that's what stood out to me. We got a room full of people who've pretty much stayed intact for 2 days working these issues out. One of the questions we sort of looked at yesterday is, excuse me, what does the Wyoming way mean? In a lander, we say it's the lander bar. Because when you sit at the bar at the lander bar, it's a rancher and a miner and a hippie and a climber and a millionaire and a person just passing through all having a beer together, working things out. And I think what I take away from this is it just like you said, it's going to take all of us to keep working on this, and we have to. Angela Emery is here, in my opinion, a Wyoming hero, and she mentioned in her session, 40 years, they're working on the pathways in Casper, the Platte River Trails. And if you've been out there, it's epic. And she's saying 40 more, and that's what it takes. It takes working together, staying the course. And I saw that yesterday, I see it today, and I'm inspired by it. So thanks.
Thank you so much. And now Kristi Murphy, the Recreation Program Manager for the Medicine Bow-Routt National Forest and Thunder Basin National Grasslands.
So I think today was really interesting listening to Ashley this morning, and I thought about, have you lost your joy? And I haven't. So I guess that's probably the first thing is don't lose your joy, because it doesn't matter what part of recreation management you're in, you're making a difference on the ground. So, and as a manager at a little higher level now, I don't get to see things on the ground as much, but I get to work with a lot of good people. So that's my joy. I guess part of this is removing boundaries and inviting everybody to the table. And I think we could do a better job of that. And I do have a commitment, to try to make things better for everyone and make it more inclusive. That means for accessibility, for diversity, including people to come to public land, to the Forest Service, to recreate, changing the way we do business to make it more inclusive. And we're doing some of those steps with the Forest Services, and we have a commitment to that. So I guess that's probably the biggest takeaway at this point is that commitment to inclusivity. So.
Thank you so much. Dan, last but not least,
Okay. Yeah.
Director of the Worth Initiative. I think we know that by now.
I think we established that a little while ago. Thank you. Thanks, Birch. Some of the, I've just really going into this, I was just so excited to, especially when I kind of got a chance to look through all of you who signed up and your titles and where you're coming from. I was just so excited that we were all going to have a chance to kind of be in a room together for a couple days, hear from each other, and have times during those breaks to kind of get out there and just kind of socialize and talk and collaborate and listen and learn. And I've done all that, and it just, I don't know, it really fills my bucket to kind of meet with you all and hear from you all and learn all this stuff. I mean, I could go on for a long time about all the stuff that the things that I'm excited about and the things that I really took away from this, but I'll focus on just a few things. One is that, the students, I just loved having the students here. And, I also teach courses. Those are some of my students who were here yesterday. And I just absolutely love that you guys were able to interact with them, and all the stuff that you shared yesterday and today is the same stuff that's going to go back into the classroom so that they have a chance to kind of learn about these challenges and opportunities. So for me as an educator, this is just hugely impactful to future generations of leaders in this space. So thank you for sharing all that stuff, because it's going to go right back into the curriculum. The next thing I wanted to mention too, for me, is that the big takeaway is this becomes kind of the roadmap for what UW, for what the Worth Initiative, for how we're going to help engage you all in the future and continue to engage in this space. And it really is going to kind of help. It helped me understand how we can shape our engagement across the state in a number of different communities. And then finally, the last thing is all these just little gems of these little things that people have said throughout the, and I wrote down many of them, but growing the pie, don't divide it. You have to, I think actually Ashley said you have to give it away to keep it, but I modified that to say you have to share it to keep it. I don't think we're really giving it away necessarily, but there's just all these little gems of things that, little messages, just other kind of things that Brennan, I think, was talking about changing the direction on a trail. So it's like one way, so you kind of get that user experience. So there's just a bunch of those little nuggets that I take away as well from this. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay, so this next thing is we're flipping the panel. So I've asked each of the panelists to prepare a question that they would like to ask, or maybe something that's still sort of lingering on their brain. And there'll be an opportunity for the other panelists to respond, and then also for you to respond. So please be engaged during this next section, and also be kind. These people on this panel are successful and powerful, and they're also willing to be vulnerable in this moment to say that they don't have all the answers yet. So with that preface, does anyone want to volunteer to go first?
Thank you.
Kristi.
Okay,
You're from the government. You're here to help.
I am. I need your help though. We are, I work, with the National Forest, and we manage public lands for you and for the American people. And I just wrote down a list. I said, okay, what, as recreation managers and my crew over there and that table over there, what do we manage? What types of activities? Well, there's driving for pleasure, viewing scenery, hunting, fishing, camping, hiking, mountain biking, horseback riding, UTVs, ATVs, motorcycles, snowmobile, skiing, all types of skiing, snowshoeing, rock climbing, rafting, kayaking, wildlife viewing, picnicking, going to historic cabins, photography, backpacking, e-biking. I mean, you name it, it's all happening and we're trying to manage that use. So we are sitting here today and we often talk about trails, but we really need to think about managing recreation holistically at the same time. Anytime you have a trail, you also need to have a place to park. You probably are going to need a toilet facility. And then people are coming here and they're going to need a place to camp. We also need to have education with some sort of kiosk. We have websites, things like that. There's all of the assets that go along with that one use. And that's for all of these uses that I just talked about. So there is so much going on. So my question is, we talk about increased visitor use, and it is a really big topic. How do you manage that on such a huge scale? And I was thinking, like, how can you break that down so that you can actually manage it and deal with the economic, like, I guess there's economic impacts that are positive. There's that visitor experience. It can be positive, it should be positive, and that's what we're trying to do. And there's also the natural resource impacts. So where can we as a group make the biggest impact collaboratively? Like what actual action can we take? And is there a tangible, quantifiable item or issue we can tackle as a group, as a state? What would that be? Is it have to do with facility management? Does it have to do with, dispersed camping? Is it developing more trails? Is it education? But is there one thing that we could get together on and try to figure out how to solve that issue instead of just looking at it as like, oh, we have increased visitor use. But what is the issue that revolves around that increased visitor use? So that's my question.
So what's something tangible that we can begin to work on or do to address all of the things that come with holistic recreation management? As you take a moment to submit some ideas that you have, I'm going to ask the panelists to respond to that. She didn't make it easy off the bat.
Yeah. So please put your ideas in the. We really want to try to capture as much as possible. So if you guys have ideas, please be sure to write those down. One thought. I mean, I think one of the things that I heard from many people today is that they want to have a high quality recreational experience, right? I mean, that visitor experience and everybody wants to have that high quality experience, and they don't want to have that experience impacted too much. I mean, they're willing to take a little bit of impact to it, but not too much. I mean, Bud's running into this as well. Like, he's introducing people to their favorite fishing, people who live there. He's taking new people to fishing holes that people have been fishing for years and years and years. And those people probably don't like seeing other people in their fishing hole. And while we're allowing people, we should allow and encourage people to do this. We should try to really focus on, I mean, my hope is that we can focus on maintaining or maximizing that experience that we have while we're out there, because we all want to have that amazing experience when we're out recreating on those public lands, right? So, I mean, that's the big answer to your big question, but that's what my hope would be. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna offer up a few from the audience and then we'll go to another panelist. So I have here a lot about education, including online resources, resident and visitor sentiment surveys, youth involvement, funding, education, funding, Friends of the Bow-Routt. Who's starting that? Infrastructure.
I wonder.
Large scale planning across agencies and jurisdictions, to plan with wildlife and ecological connectivity in mind. There's more coming in. Thank you. This is really awesome. I'm gonna see if anyone else wanted to respond. You were leaning forward like you wanted to.
To Kristi's.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think too, one thing I would say, all of those ideas, especially when we hear things like funding, that's the big monster problem to solve. But in the meantime, I think one thing that would help when you listen to all of the things that happen on public lands, and that's where most of us do what we enjoy. These people are among our most important friends, allies, and partners, and they need our support. We've heard mentioned by people within the organizations who manage public lands, they're understaffed, short-staffed, just like all of us having tough time filling positions. So in the meantime, groups like in Laramie here with Common Outdoor Ground and Bike Net organizing themselves around this for us to help do those days. If we all had what Scott runs in the Tetons, that would be awesome. We can work toward that in our own forest. But I think there are tangible things to do by way of support, by modeling. I'll give an example from my community. Josie McKee, who was formerly involved with the Central Wyoming Climbers Alliance, was doing a tabling at Sinks Canyon when the climbing is really busy and handing out free coffee and also cards about this is how you play nice in our neighborhood. Now, it was said much better than that, but it was examples of how to leave no trace, amenities that are offered and why it's so important. And she took that upon herself with her club just to go out and start doing it on Saturday mornings. And I think those things go a long way. We did see a big uptick in visitors, and many of those folks are brand new to getting outdoors. Can't really blame folks if they don't know the rules, because the rules aren't really written anywhere when you're entering the forest. There's no forest entry gate, so to speak. So I think those things would be helpful.
Yeah, in terms of building constituent support and the funding aspect, I think building relationships is super important. Not only within our own community here of both commercial and non-commercial users of the outdoor recreation resource here in Wyoming, but talking to the people that professionally manage it, run it, and establish those relationships up and down the line. Politicians, land managers, county commissioners, your legislators, establish a personal relationship. There's nothing wrong with calling your legislator and at least having a phone conversation or a cup of coffee. I'm old school media, so I like conversation and coffee and not texts and emails, although I'm forced to do that. But establish those relationships at all the levels. The managers of your wildlife, the managers of your lands, the manager of your tax dollars, and build that story, tell that story. It'll be heard. Wyoming is still a one-on-one state. It's still a personal state where people can listen and meet people such as Representative Newsome, such as head of the Forest Service Recreation Program here in Wyoming. So I think that's super important to keep in mind as we move forward.
Thank you. And I'm going to attempt a rough synthesis of what's happening in this incredibly rich Q&A, which is sort of to do holistic management, we need holistic planning. But we've also heard about how that can be really difficult and time consuming and expensive. And so then making sure that we're addressing those factors and making sure that everyone is involved and really utilizing, like we've heard throughout the day, partnerships and volunteers and leaning on each other to try to fill that capacity to accomplish all these goals that we have. Do you have any brief thoughts that you want to offer? And then we'll go to the next question. We'll also, I was just going to say, we'll also have a chance for final thoughts if you want to marinate.
No, I don't think I have any thoughts right now. I think I'm going to listen to what folks are thinking, but it would be nice if we could come up with something that we can come together as a group and say, hey, here's something that collaboratively across the state. This is a wildly important goal for this group. That's kind of what I'm thinking, or it just shows some pride in our outdoor recreation management and what we're doing. And we all take kind of a personal interest in it. And we try to make, it only takes a spark. So you just make it grow,
Thank you so much. I'm gonna archive these, but they'll be saved. And there'll be some way to get this out back to all of you so you get to see this. But I just want to clear the slate for Representative Newsome.
Thank you. I'm going to kind of play off of what Bud said. And as a legislator, I'm kind of in that dollar figure too. So as we go to build this recreational trust fund, outdoor recreation trust fund, and I would, I guess, say to you, do you know who your legislator is? Do you know who your representative is? Do you know who your senator is? And what are you going to do to become their go-to person? So in my legislative life, I have people that, I have my gun guy, I have my pathways guy. So many of the people are in this room who I regularly, when I have a question, especially, I'm pretty well versed in the outdoors, but I don't know anything about mining. So I have my coal guy, I have my uranium guy, I have people that I can reach out to that we've developed those relationships that I trust. And so what would you do to create those relationships? And from my experience, it's more than, I'm going to talk to you about this single topic. But what are you going to do to become your legislator's go-to person for the outdoors? Go-to person for mountain bike trails? Go-to person for hiking trails? What are you going to do to influence a legislator to say, I have a question about the Outdoor Recreation Trust Fund? I need to talk to a constituent of mine about that. So how are you going to create those relationships? Go out to coffee, because like the guy that I go to on gun issues, we don't agree. Quite often, we don't agree. But I have lunch with him about every quarter when I'm home, and we have some spirited discussions. And so I would like to challenge all of you to become that person in your legislator's life who they go to for that information about outdoor activities.
Thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I don't know what the number.
One of my guys.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, Steph Kessler's taught me so many things, and one of them is our legislators are what are known as citizen legislators. It's not like a full-time job. They don't have paid staff. They work, as far as I can tell, 22 and a half hours a day, and they sleep a little bit in between. And they get maybe 400 to 800 bills a session that they have to digest and understand. Is this important? How do I vote on this? What do my constituents think? And all of these things, like we were talking about, like Dave showed us the other day, Dave Glenn showed us, we're all in this together. We get this. And I guess I would pivot first and say, the legislators go to Cheyenne to represent us. That's literally why they go, is to make sure Wyoming's better for us. And so all of these opportunities that we have every single year, and even with city council, county commissioners, recreation boards show up. I love the comments from Caleb in Newcastle. I mean, they're doing cool, really great things in a small town in Weston County because they show up and they talk to people. Commissioner Ryan in Hot Springs County, I don't know that he's ever mountain biked, but he sure likes what we're doing there, and he wants to see more of it because he knows it's good for his town. And I think that's such an on-point message. Get connected, build those relationships, and let folks know why it's important to us.
Let's go.
I'm just gonna real quickly. So we had a comment in the Q&A. I would love to learn how to do this. So also, if you have advice, go ahead and put it in here. This can be a learning experience for all of us. So if this is something you've done, what were the steps you took? And then we can learn from each other. Go ahead, Dan.
So Representative Newsome was on a previous panel talking about this very same issue and mentioned something that really stuck with me. And this was at the governor's convention for tourism and hospitality. She was on a panel talking about just engaging with your legislature. And the story that she told was that one thing that really sticks with at least with you and maybe with other legislators is tell how it relates to you personally. When you communicate with your legislators or representatives, like when you can tell that personal, heartfelt story, like what this means to you in a way that's constructive, but speak from the heart. And I think many of you guys can do that with when you talk about outdoor recreation, how important it is to you, or maybe it's part of your maybe it's your livelihood or whatever. But those stories really can be really impactful and important if they can be shared in a way that's really constructive and can help legislators understand how much it means to you. And those go a long way to making change. So hopefully I paraphrased your words, but they were really impactful. So.
And we get an echo of that here. So thinking about one-on-one conversations, passion, commitment to the community, longevity in a community. So we heard also earlier today about patience. And also maybe a suggestion that we have an outdoor rec lobby day at the legislature. So There we go. 2 thumbs up from Representative Newsome. Do you want to offer any reflection?
So the most annoying thing that happens at session is that you get these robo emails. So it says, dear whoever, insert your name here. I'm from this county and I have this, and then you get hundreds of them that are exactly the same. And you're just like, at some point it doesn't mean anything. But then you get that one email from that one person that says, this is what this is about for me and this heartfelt. And that's the one you pay attention to. You do delete. And some of us make rules that it will automatically go to trash if it's one of those robo emails. And so the key is to make that personal connection, to tell your personal story, and create that relationship prior to us going, because I will look through my list of emails. And if I see a person that I have that relationship with, I'm going to read that email every time. And I'm going to take that into consideration every time. But the one-click politics emails, you just get overwhelmed. So in my experience, I will at like 7 o'clock at night, I'll have my emails cleared and I'll wake up and I'll have 700 emails. Yep. And then you just go, I can't deal with this. So I briefly look through everything. I pull out those ones from people I know or from organizations I know. And the rest of them, I just delete them. I don't even look at them because I don't have time. And I think that's common. Representative Henderson is in the back and he's kind of nodding his head. So I think that's common. We just get overwhelmed, but we're looking for that nugget. We're looking for that connection to home. We're looking for that connection to people that we know or industries that we hold in our heart. And you can be very impactful if you tell me your message in a heartfelt manner. That is the most effective thing to do. Getting hundreds of emails, hundreds of robo emails does nothing, and but has similar.
And I'm sorry, but if you want to ask your question next, and then you can fold in whatever you want to say now, but for the sake of time.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay.
It's your turn.
But I'm first going to say that I disagree with you. The reason, speaking as an ex-legislator, one of the bigger reasons I went to Cheyenne were the reheated beanie weenies and recycled cheese plates that we get to see every night and rubber chickens at the different receptions.
So that represent people.
So yeah. So the question I have, and it goes back to my original comments, is we talked about conflict, potential conflict, and hopefully avoidable conflict, but between commercial outdoor recreation providers and the general public, the non-commercial. And the question I want to ask, and this is something that doesn't have to come immediately, obviously, is what can we do to avoid those things, to mitigate those things, to solve those things in the future? Because it happens all the time. And Dan had my little anecdote about, and we do. I mean, our fly shop, we take fishermen out. We sometimes have 5, 6 different trips a day we go out with, and we bump into residents and we go into their favorite fishing holes. But we make a living, and we hire, about 12 different guides during the summer for our. So it is a good important part. But we don't want to create this enmity or animosity with the non-commercial consuming public. So that's the question I have. How do we make sure that's avoidable or solvable in the future?
All right, Dan.
I've got one thought on that, which I think one of the things that when we talked about community a lot, when you see, and I know Zach's here as well from Wyoming Mountain Guides, so he does the same thing. He'll bring a group up to a rock climbing crag, and there's a whole bunch of private people who are climbing, like, oh crap, here comes a whole bunch of folks, and they're going to sling all the routes up. But I know that his outfit and others do a really good job of just being good stewards. Well, obviously when they're there and kind of sharing, or being really helpful, or being nice and being courteous. I mean, that's kind of a given, is that if your guides are really well trained and they're there to kind of like be friendly and be nice, you kind of break down those barriers. And then also kind of giving back, like doing work on the land, like working on the trails to help, get better fishing access. And when you show up to those volunteer days, or your staff show up kind of representing, and you're giving back, those other community members will see, well, this outfit's not just an extractive outfit. They support us, they support the community. They're going to give back. They're going to support charities or those things that are kind of working in this space. And those gestures just go such a long way. And I know I was involved with Laramie Bike Net here in Laramie, and we work with Pilot Hill. We try to organize trail days out there, so it's not us annoying mountain. I know we've given mountain bikers a whole bunch of flack here this whole time, and I'm one of those. Not the whole time, but just a little bit. We deserve it, but we try to give back to Pilot Hill as well. So we engage our through BikeNet, we engage our membership to participate in volunteer days, to get out there and go out and build trails and help maintain trails, and also work with the Forest Service to kind of build those relationships as well, to kind of get out there for National Public Lands Day or for National Trails Day, and kind of give back. So we're not always kind of seen as the group that is always asking for more trails and never doing anything in return. So I don't know, those are some things that I think are really, really helpful.
And I'll just offer quickly from whatever I'm calling this iPad. Man, these are hard questions, which I appreciate, and I think we can all agree on. Be transparent and honest about intention and what we can and can't do. Going into the process, we heard that from the planning panel. Remember or remind those with narrow interests about the benefit for all when we diversify rec opportunities. And then, in-person collaboration. It's harder to be mean in person than online. And make sure that we're investing in communities, not only in stewardship, but also, if the commercial the commercial outfits are hiring people from the community, local guides with a personal relationship to residents, and also maybe thinking about locals perks, so to push back against the that feeling of inundation. Kristi, you looked like you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was going to talk a little bit about like outfitting and guiding. And there's two camps of like, how do you manage that use on public land? There's the camp that says, oh, it's a kind of a supply and demand. You issue the permit. Basically, the industry kind of regulates itself, because if you're not running a good business, you're not going to stay in business. And then and then there's the other camp of quotas and more regulation. Basically, you have to do a capacity study to say, oh, this is how many people are out here. We want, we think that this percentage of people, this is the public use. This could be the outfitter and guide use on this. Let's say it's a section of river. And then there's maybe areas that you say these are areas that we can do guiding, or that guiding could happen. And these are areas that maybe guiding wouldn't happen. And this is all theoretical at this point. You would have to do some planning for that. But I'm curious what your thought is, Bud.
Go ahead.
Oh, so I guess that's just the thought about like, what is it, that we're doing with managing that use. But that public information piece where you're giving out a good message when you're guiding is really good. That is very important. That's about stewardship and teaching someone how to work properly with the land and to, go to the bathroom the right way, not to litter, where should you be trammeling, that sort of thing, staying on trails. So I guess that's the thing is there's those trade-offs and you're trying to figure that out. So with Bud's question, I think, there's more questions behind that on how to resolve that conflict. But I think all of it comes down to really good communication and working together.
Yeah, and being clear with your goals and understanding trade-offs. Before I archive this, we also got, by locals, you mean indigenous, right? And educating communities, et cetera. So I'm gonna archive these now. And Mike or Dan, who wants to go next?
I'll let Dan wrap up. He's such a good closer.
All right.
Okay. Well, I do have a really,
Wait,
for me,
I think it's not your turn.
Yeah, you go ahead. Yeah.
what? Okay.
I think Mike's gonna go so that you can close.
You're going to close then, I guess, right? Or you're not?
I guess so. Look at
Okay.
what a closer he is. He just closed me on that.
All right. I just closed you on that. Okay.
Shut the door.
Shut the door. Well, so the question that I have for this audience, and actually what's really kind of important for me is, what can the university and what can the Worth Initiative, what can we do for you all and your communities? That's something that's really kind of, that's going back to that whole roadmap thing. What is it that we can do to kind of help engage? And there's so many, let me just kind of go over some of the resources and things that we can kind of do here at UW. I've heard a lot of people talk about the need for data, the collecting, analyzing, data visualization. I know we're already doing things like we can help with trails charrettes through the Ruckelshaus Institute. We've already been doing that, and Nicole is going to be coming up, I guess, in a few weeks in Pinedale. So we've been involved with any type of planning processes that we can help out with as well. We're working on a sentiment study for Teton County for trail counters. We've got trail cams and trail counters on the Pilot Hill property right now. We've got graduates, as you guys saw, we have graduate students who work on various projects. Scott and I we're serving on a committee of a student who just successfully defended that looked at a program evaluation of Friends of the BT, their volunteer program. She just did an amazing job. So undergraduate student projects as well. We've had them plugged in all around the state and doing some really amazing projects. Haley, who's in the back there, worked on a project with Visit Cheyenne and their master plan for planning that resulted in her working in the tourism industry later on. And Bryn worked on developing the Outdoor Recreation Collaborative's toolkit, wherever Bryn is, and that landed her a job along with just being awesome. So, what is it that UW can do? And those are just kind of a small amount of examples, and then partnerships, like partnering with Wyoming Pathways or the Wyoming Statistical Analysis Center. So yeah, I would love to see your ideas kind of populate in this thing, and we're going to use that as kind of a roadmap for what it is that you all would like us to do. So And happy to also, if you guys have any suggestions or ideas up here on the stage, we'd love to hear those as well. So.
What can UW do? Don't worry, there's plenty in here. You're going to be busy for a long time.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
But let's hear from a panelist first.
I can just say that the help we get from Ruckelshaus on charrettes is by and large the reason we have new trail development in Laramie and Lander, and we hope to see it in Pinedale as well. And talking with Scott earlier with Friends of the Richard Teton, just because we have a charrette doesn't mean trails will get built. It just means there'll be a healthier trail culture and healthier trail discussions in that community. And I think what I'm going to talk about, my question is, has to do with how long these things can take and how much it takes all of us. But, you know, recognize the value of this amazing research institution we have here that all of a sudden in the last several years has this amazing college dedicated to the things we love. I think there's so much opportunity there, but and truly every time we've asked, it's been like, yes. Dr. Roger Copal, another professor here, I reached out with, and within a couple of weeks I had what we were looking for. He just absolutely, I'll help you. So.
So I'm seeing so far economic impact data, other types of data, people excited about student engagement. Oh, there was one I wanted to read that I lost. Here we go. Tangible initiatives to increase BIPOC student involvement and enrollment in the Haupt School. Also keeping in mind that while we're focused in Laramie, that the state is diverse and has other challenges. More granular visitation data, partnering with agencies on graduate job placement so we can keep talent in Wyoming. I think that there's some graduating students who would probably be interested in that as well. Were you going to offer something?
Oh, I was just going to say, I often refer to, because we're in Cody, or I'm in Cody, we often refer to ourselves as the hinterlands. So oftentimes we don't recognize that we can reach out. That sometimes we feel very isolated from the university and isolated from Cheyenne and isolated from kind of the population centers of our state. And so we that live in the hinterlands have to be more aware of what the university has to offer and ask. And so I would encourage everybody to do that. And we will do a better job of doing that up in the Cody area, knowing that those resources are available.
Yeah, we also have sort of outdoor development, education, and leadership to multiply the influencers and doers across the state. I think that's really exciting. Best practices, developing informational kiosks, facilitating large-scale recreation planning. I think we've been talking about master planning, but yeah, maybe at the Pilot Hill level or the city level, but what would that look like at a county level or a state level? Lots of student project interests. So we do have practicum and capstone courses offered every year. And now you know who to call if you want to get engaged with them. So, and professors are eager to work with communities, and, you know, they might not know where to ask. So do reach out to us about that as well. Other thoughts? All right.
Kristi, did you?
Oh, it's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say thank you for the support you've given the Forest Service. We have done a couple of projects and the students have been getting, I think they get a lot out of those projects on the ground. And so they're our next round of recreation managers. So that's how they get that first bit of influence is through your program. So thank you.
And then also just popped up thinking about education beyond the University of Wyoming in Laramie, but also community colleges and other communities around the state. And at least 6 people in the audience think you're quite handsome.
Someone said Beto O'Rourke. That's some.
Okay, Mike, what do you got for us?
Yeah, okay. Try to piece this together. A lot of us are in collaboratives, aren't we, across the state, and they're growing and they're awesome. And we have Bryn and Amy to thank for that. They drive all over the state. Even they attempt to come to Riverton in the winter. No one does that. So, and we show up and we collaborate in those sessions. We've been doing it in some cases for 5 years. And I'm wondering, how do we, the first part of the question is, how do we collaborate when we're not in the collaborative meetings? How do we make collaboration the norm? What's the famous saying? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. This isn't a fast process, getting outdoor rec done. Ask Angela Emery. But they still go together. We've got evidence that this works, and the Office of Outdoor Rec and Patrick Harrington's team are eager to get all of us collaborating. And when we talk in the legislature, we talk to legislators about, listen, this is communities collaborating together on this. This isn't one interest group. Dave talked about the Monleys, which is a new phrase that I'm going to use now. It's the me only group. This is not a me only state. This is a we state. It takes all of us. Another good example is Sandra Sanderson, who I'll embarrass for a second over there in the corner. She's a YDOT employee, our biggest agency, one of the most important, and she's a staff member assigned to outdoor recreation issues as it impacts YDOT, the ultimate in government collaboration, and she's indispensable. And she travels the state, and she listens, and she takes notes, and she is a font of unbelievable amounts of information. If you have a visit with Sandra, bring a dictionary and a thesaurus and be prepared to take notes, because it'll be good. So that, as we look at this in Lander, Wyoming, we've talked since I've lived there about, wouldn't it be great if we could ride our bikes from Lander to the sinks without going on the pavement? And the most desired route has at least 6 landowners in the way, and they own really lovely property right on the Poposia. So that's a tough lift. But if we look at it from a 10-year lens, maybe it's not. Maybe we start developing relationships with those folks and we listen to them. We have another trail area called the Bus, which is currently situated on state lands. And there's a gentleman, the Spriggs family in Lander, who've been there for generations, who doesn't want anything to do with letting us cut through his property. And we need to respect that, and we do. But it doesn't mean we don't stop working toward it. And it does take all of us. It takes us carrying water for each other too. If it's a project that you're not interested in terms of you like that sport or activity, but you happen to have expertise, why wouldn't we lend it to that group? Because if we really believe all ships rise together, like we've heard many times over the past 2 days, don't sit on the sidelines if you can be helpful, and just stay at it. Now, I get it. We all have limited amounts of capacity and bandwidth, but I have a sense that when we leave those collaboratives, we could over time start to make that a way of life. And I hope you continue to attend them, and thank Brent and Amy for driving all over and bringing us to the table, because it is the answer. And I would ask for your suggestions on how we make that better, more robust, and more normal.
So both, how do we shift our attitudes to be sort of naturally collaborative and really believing in the value that can bring, as well as maybe more literal ways that we can improve the collaboratives already happening in our state for the long run? Thoughts from the panel?
So I'm just going to tell a little story about our Park County Collaborative. We had a meeting, I guess 2 or 3 meetings ago, and some of our members, we have the wild horses, trails and that sort of thing, and it's on BLM land. And so some of our members said, well, in this part of the trail, we need to do some work, and we talked about it. And the next meeting we come in and that kind of is on our old business. And the members from the BLM said, oh, we took care of that. Done. Didn't take any money from the group. They saw it. The BLM people who are part of our collaborative said, hey, we can just make that happen. And they did. And it was awesome. And then we could move on to other things. And I was so impressed with that group that we get people in our collaborative in Park County that are decision makers that can affect change almost immediately within their sphere of influence. And so I think as we get more and more of that, of here's a problem and somebody decides that they can solve it, and they do, that is just remarkable.
Just on a general level, if it can't be done here in Wyoming, it probably can't be done anywhere. We are the smallest political unit of the states of all, 580,000 people. And yes, we have our drawbacks, the long distances, the topography, the hideous winters, the wind, you name it. But if we can't do it here, you know, I don't think it could be done anywhere. And so I just want to inject a whole ingredient of hope in all this process, not only for this collaboration, but many others in the state.
So we have some really wonderful answers. So centralizing coordination at the Office of Outdoor Recreation. You guys are ready for that, right? Finding synergies between all the different groups. Find a way to say yes. Rising tides lift all boat leaves out what's good for wildlife. Transdisciplinary thinking and behavior becoming normalized and recognized. Empathy, being okay with being uncomfortable. A growth mindset I wrote down earlier today. Let's keep building on the important relationships and those developed at this conference. Collaborative listserv. There is actually an email called the Collaborative Connection. Did I get that right? The Collaborative Connection. You can sign up for it at orec.com. Yorec.com. Thank you. Increased focus on negotiation, facilitation, and having difficult conversations. You want to add something?
I would just add one thing. So I'm on the Southeast Wyoming Outdoor Recreation Collaborative, and one of the things that I think, I mean, the team that you guys do an amazing job kind of getting us together, getting us organized. But I mean, there are collaboratives all over the state. There's a lot of things to juggle. And what I really hope you all, if you aren't involved in a collaborative, and if you kind of qualify and you can be part of a collaborative, do get involved in them. And my ask for you is to be additive to that collaborative, not extractive. So don't just show up to the meetings, but like help them add capacity to the work that's being done in that space. If the right people are not at that table, maybe, I mean, don't put it on Bryn to be the one to be like, hey, where's this person? Maybe you can just shoot that person a text or whatever it is, but help them get the job done. So I just want to put a call out to you all to make sure that you're being additive in that space to get the work done, because it is so important and it's a great place to do that.
I would just add on that note, Amy has called many times to me, either connect me to a group or to a group member to me so we can get things done more quickly. And it's always a great joy to play a part in that, because you know it's making our state better for rec.
Okay, so what we're going to do for the next few minutes is thank you so much for everything that you've contributed. Thank you for the really thoughtful questions. I think that it's been great to be able to sort of have the audience be able to think about answers to those, but I also want, some of the questions involved, what can you do? And so I want to take the next few minutes for you to think about what's one thing that you can commit to doing leaving this forum. And there are index cards and Post-it notes and pens on all of your tables. So we're going to go non-digital right now. And I want you to write down something that you can commit to. And then when you leave today, I want you to put them down on the tables out in the breezeway. And then we can all see what we're collectively sort of planning to accomplish over the next few years. And then I'm going to ask the panel to sort of also, once we're done with this, offer any final reflections, brief remarks. So maybe go ahead and take a moment to think about those.
Me?
Not yet. We're gonna wait like 2 minutes. Please go awkwardly on stage. Talk amongst yourselves.
We should be.
Yeah. Sorry. Write them on the back of me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You should close this next one.
Yeah, well, that's what's coming at the end.
Yeah. Okay. That'll be good last.
My ears are shot. What are you thinking about? Oh, no, it's something on the section. Oh, or maybe it was, sorry, you heard it. Jesus. Seeing some, yeah, well, next week, next back. Yeah. Yeah, I've got a heart issue. This might have been. And persistently fib for a month. That was in August. Too loud sensitive. I wonder. 54. So, yeah, just when you're sick. Anything I've heard. Should be fine. Should be something take that. That's awesome.
All right, it looks like people are wrapping up. I'm really looking forward to seeing what everyone's written. Final thoughts. We're closing out the second day.
I'll go. So we are going to have some additional legislation related to the outdoor trust fund. And what I need you all to do is to start that conversation now with your legislator. During the interim, we will have a meeting in Evanston, June 12th and 13th. Another one in August in Casper, middle August. And then in October, we'll kind of finalize all of the bills that we're going to bring. But what I need for you to do is to get with your legislator, buy him a cup of coffee, and say that the Outdoor Recreation Trust Fund is important to you and why. At this point, we're going to need probably some additional appropriation in order to make it so that we can put some money in the corpus of the trust fund, as well as have some funds to do some projects on the ground and to do some grants. So if each of you could commit to calling, texting, emailing your representative and your senator and expressing to them how important the trust fund is to you and why, that would be very helpful. It's going to be a heavy lift to get the remainder of the trust fund language and statute in place. If you don't know, in a budget session, there has to be a 2/3 vote to even have a bill introduced. So we need 42 representatives to say that we want to hear about the recreational trust fund before it's even talked about. And that's going to be a big, heavy lift because we have several people that are not on board and many of them are your representatives. So if you could reach out to them now throughout the summer and continue to say, this is important to us, that would be very helpful to me. So some of them, there's a myriad of objections. Some of them don't like the idea of trust funds, number one. They don't like the idea of us putting, they call it coffee cans, putting money in these separate coffee cans. Some of them think that it's not the role of government. They think it's, I don't know whose role it is, but some of them you'll get that objection. I don't think this is the role of government. And I think the best way we can combat that is to just say, I think the government is here to serve the people. And outdoor recreation infrastructure, which is where this particular trust fund is focused, is important to us as citizens. as well as our visitors from a economic diversity standpoint.
Thank you. We have a little less than a minute each for y'all.
Can I just amplify on what Representative Newsome was saying about building support? And obviously, this is a legislative initiative, so much of this falls back on the legislature and the legislators. It really is, and it goes back to what a wonderful, wondrous place Wyoming is in terms of the ability to directly contact your legislator. But here's another little thing you might think about in building consensus, building activism, support, or call your, you might contact your local legislator, be it a House representative or a state senator, and do that. I mean, establish that personal relationship. But call a friend over your friends who might be in Weston County, Teton County, Uinta County. Call them and say, hey, we have this interest in this legislative initiative. And start that process right and talk to that friend and have them contact their legislator. And build that whole broad-based effort of support for these initiatives, and do it right now. Do it in the off season, on the off session. When they hit session in Cheyenne, this will be a budget session. It's going to be even more difficult. They're going to be even more slammed. They're going to have so much stuff coming out of the fire hose. And so if they have that knowledge, if they have that aforementioned notice of what the issue is, it's going to be so much better for getting that through. If you do it in the 11th hour and you do it when you're in Cheyenne and everybody's pulling their hair out and screaming and running either way, it's going to get lost in all the noise.
Just echo that, ditto. Also, we started talking about this not that long ago, and here we are. It's amazing. Thanks to Dan and Birch and the whole team. I can't even believe this happened so quickly, and it was awesome. So thank you guys.
Forest Service lands need your help. And so anytime you can volunteer, please reach out to the ranger districts, Douglas on the Medicine Bow, Douglas, Laramie, or Brush Creek Hayden over in Saratoga. And please volunteer. We're looking for campground hosts. We're looking for people we have a group called Common Outdoor Ground that works with us, and they actually help with all these volunteer projects. And so, contact Common Outdoor Ground. Definitely, we need you. We need people to help. And your stewardship is very important to us. So I think probably the same thing on all the forests in Wyoming. All the forests in Wyoming need help. So reach out to your Forest Service offices and volunteer when you can. Help on projects. Show up when there's a meeting about a project proposal. We need input from everyone. So thank you.
And I'm gonna put Dan on the spot because there were 3 times that answer got highly upvoted, and it was, how do we keep the momentum going? Can we get a contact list? When are we doing this again? And can we do this again? So what do you think, Dan?
We are doing this again. Maybe not in a 3-day format, but, and the other thing that I've also, and so we do want to get your ideas on this, but I've heard repeatedly from people in this room that this was awesome. I mean, even right as it's before it started, like, this is awesome. When are we going to do it again? I was like, well, let's just have this first one first. Let's see if we can survive this one. But I think the idea might be to try to do this on a more annual basis and bring it around the state and continue to have students involved in it, presenting out some of their work. So moving it around the state would probably potentially involve a lot more people in different communities and continue that work. So we are committed to doing that. And we're also committed to being there for you. I mean, maybe we can't do everything, but when I can't do those things, we can find people at the university to kind of help you engage with the right people to solve the issues or challenges or opportunities that you all have. So those are my commitments, and we're gonna do it. So
Thank you all so much for coming. I look forward to seeing many, many of you tomorrow. Let's just do one final round of applause before we're released into whatever the weather has to offer.